The Imperial fleet invaded Earth first contact. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the dreadnought Dominion's edge, his four eyes scanning the blue marble that hung in the void before them. The third planet of this unremarkable system had been flagged by their scouts as containing primitive life, the kind that usually surrendered within hours of seeing an Imperial fleet in orbit. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he watched the massive armada spread across space like a metallic storm cloud. 2,000 ships strong, the 47th Conquest Fleet represented the might of the Empire. From the smallest corvettes to the massive planet crackers, each vessel bore the crimson mark of Imperial authority. In his 300 years of service, had overseen the subjugation of 47 worlds. This would be his 48th, and likely his most routine. Admiral, communications officer, approached with measured steps, her scaled skin shimmering under the ship's artificial lighting. We've intercepted numerous primitive transmissions from the surface. The inhabitants call themselves humans and their world Earth. They appear to be in the early stages of spaceflight, with some basic orbital installations. His primary eyes remained fixed on the planet while his secondary pair focused on the tactical displays. Population estimates. Approximately 8 billion sentients, Admiral. They've divided their world into nearly 200 political entities, many of which appear to be in conflict with each other. In's voice carried the familiar tone of someone reporting on yet another chaotic primitive world. Their technology is crude but advancing rapidly. Nuclear weapons, basic fusion power, primitive computing networks. Typical turned from the viewport, his massive frame casting shadows across the bridge crew. Send the standard ultimatum. Complete surrender within one solar rotation or face annihilation. Have the planet crackers charge their primary weapons for demonstration purposes. As the communications array transmitted the Empire's demands toward Earth, allowed himself a moment of reflection. They had built their empire over, conquering world after world with overwhelming force and superior technology. Their fusion drives could cross star systems in days. Their energy shields could deflect nuclear weapons like raindrops. Their particle beams could slice through mountains. No primitive species had ever successfully resisted the Empire's might. On the planet below, humanity received its first contact with an alien intelligence. President Sarah stood in the emergency command center, buried 300 meters beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by the leaders of every major nation on Earth. The translation had been surprisingly clear, helped by the aliens' use of mathematical concepts and basic physics to establish communication protocols. The message was simple and terrifying: surrender completely or be destroyed. "How long until their deadline?" General asked, his weathered face grim in the bunker's harsh lighting. 18 hours, 37 minutes, replied Doctor, the expert who had been hastily flown in from Tokyo when the first transmissions were received. They've made their capabilities quite clear. The energy readings from those larger ships are off our scales. Looked around the table at faces that represented 6 billion people. The Chinese premier, the Russian president, the European Union's leadership, representatives from every major power on Earth. For the first time in centuries, humanity faced an external threat that made their petty squabbles seem insignificant. Military assessment? Asked, though she dreaded the answer. General, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, activated a holographic display showing Earth's orbit. Red dots representing alien vessels swarmed around their world like angry hornets. "Ma'am, we're by a factor that doesn't have a meaningful number. Our most optimistic projections give us a 0% chance of conventional victory. Their smallest ships are larger than our aircraft carriers, and we've counted at least 12 vessels that appear to be the size of small cities." However, Doctor from the International Space Agency interjected, "we're not completely helpless. We've been monitoring their formations and communication patterns. They're overconfident, which might create opportunities." Premier leaned forward, his translator working rapidly. "What kind of opportunities?" Doctor highlighted several sections of the alien fleet. "They're not maintaining tight security protocols. Their ships are operating on predictable patterns, and they seem to view us as so primitive that they're not bothering with advanced countermeasures. It's like they're following a standard operating procedure for dealing with Stone Age civilizations." "Because that's exactly what they're doing," added Doctor. "I've been analyzing their communication structure. They use standardized conquest protocols, complete with template surrender demands and demonstration schedules. They've clearly done this many times before, always against technologically inferior species." felt a spark of something that might have been hope. Are you suggesting they might not be prepared for us to actually fight back? More than that, General said, studying the tactical displays with renewed interest. If they're following standard protocols, they might not have proper intelligence about our actual capabilities. They see our technology level and assume they know everything about us. Doctor nodded enthusiastically. They don't understand human industrial capacity or our recent technological acceleration. Our manufacturing capabilities, our distributed infrastructure, our ability to innovate under pressure, these aren't things you can measure from orbital scans. Plus, added Dr. James Wright from MIT's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, they might not recognize some of our more recent developments. Quantum computing, advanced materials science, nanotechnology, these might not register as threats to a species that's been using the same conquest playbook for centuries. Looked around the room, seeing something she hadn't expected in the faces of Earth's leaders. Determination. Not the desperate bravado of the doomed, but the calculating resolve of people who had identified an opportunity in seemingly impossible circumstances. "What's the plan?" she asked. The next 6 hours saw the most intensive global coordination effort in human history. Every major military, scientific, and industrial facility on Earth received new directives. Fusion power plants began operating beyond their safety margins. Manufacturing facilities retooled for wartime production at unprecedented scales. Research laboratories shared centuries of jealously guarded secrets. Most importantly, humanity began implementing a strategy that the Empire had never encountered before. Instead of surrendering or mounting a desperate last stand, Earth would appear to comply while secretly preparing for total war. Doctor crafted humanity's response carefully, using the same mathematical communication protocols the aliens had established. Earth would need time to organize its surrender, the message claimed. Complex political structures required extensive coordination. Surely the mighty empire could grant a few additional days for the proper submission of an entire world. Admiral received humanity's reply with mild annoyance, but no suspicion. Primitive species often needed extra time to overcome their political divisions and accept the inevitable. 3 additional days would make no meaningful difference to the outcome. During those 3 days, humanity transformed itself. Colonel Maria Santos watched from the observation deck of the hastily retrofitted space station New Hope as the final components of humanity's secret weapon were assembled in orbit. What had once been a civilian research facility was now the coordination center for the most ambitious military operation in human history. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying across the bustling command center. "Fusion reactors are operating at 130% of nominal capacity," reported Chief Engineer Park. "We're burning through safety margins, but they'll hold for what we need. Quantum entanglement communication network is fully operational," added Doctor from the communications station. "We have instantaneous coordination between all major facilities worldwide and in orbit. Manufacturing status. Final assembly is completing ahead of schedule," replied Dr. Anderson from the production oversight station. "The modular design allowed us to build components simultaneously at 14,000 different facilities worldwide. We should have full deployment capability within 12 hours. Santos nodded, allowing herself a moment of pride in what humanity had accomplished. In 72 hours, they had gone from receiving their first alien contact to deploying technology that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. The combination of human ingenuity, industrial capacity, and desperate determination had created something unprecedented. The weapon itself was elegantly simple in concept, terrifyingly complex in execution. Rather than trying to match alien firepower with traditional weapons, humanity had developed something the Empire had never encountered: a self-replicating quantum virus that could propagate through any technology-based network. "How did the test runs perform?" Santos asked Dr. Wright, who had been coordinating the final software development from multiple locations simultaneously. "Beyond expectations," Wright replied, exhaustion and excitement mixing in his voice. "The quantum virus successfully infiltrated and disabled 7 different types of Earth-based systems, from simple electronics to advanced AI networks. More importantly, it adapted to each system's defenses automatically, learning and evolving as it spread." and the delivery mechanism. Also ready, confirmed Doctor. We've hidden the deployment packages inside what appear to be standard surrender documents and cultural gifts. The aliens' own translation protocols will serve as our entry point into their networks. Santos looked out at the alien fleet, which maintained its intimidating formation around Earth. In a few hours, Admiral would expect humanity's final surrender. Instead, he would receive the beginning of the Empire's first military catastrophe. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity's salvation lay not in superior firepower or advanced technology, but in something the aliens couldn't have anticipated: the ability to turn their own overconfidence and standardized procedures against them. All stations prepare for Operation Prometheus, Santos announced. In 6 hours, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when someone underestimates humanity. As the countdown began, every human on Earth understood that they were about to attempt something that would either save their species or ensure its complete annihilation. There would be no second chances, no opportunity for negotiation. When the Empire discovered what humanity had done, the war would begin in earnest. But for the first time since the alien fleet had appeared, humanity felt ready for that war. The Imperial fleet invaded Earth, the virus unleashed. Admiral examined the elaborate surrender package that had been transmitted from the primitive world below. The humans had included detailed political documents, cultural artifacts, and even primitive artistic expressions as part of their submission. It was more thorough than most species managed, though that likely reflected their complex social structures rather than any particular intelligence. "The surrender appears complete," reported Communications Officer In, her scaled fingers dancing across the translation interface. "They've included governmental frameworks from all major political entities, technological specifications for their most advanced systems, and extensive cultural documentation. Standard integration protocols can begin immediately." The Admiral's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Another world added to the Empire's vast holdings, another primitive species elevated to serve the greater glory of civilization. The humans had been wise to surrender quickly rather than face the consequences of resistance. "Begin standard integration procedures," commanded. "Download their cultural and technological data to the main archives, prepare colonial administration protocols, and establish communication networks with their leadership structures." What Admiral didn't know was that buried within humanity's surrender documents, hidden inside the quantum encryption signatures of the translation protocols themselves, was something that would change the course of galactic history. Dr. Wright watched from Earth's command center as the alien fleet began downloading humanity's surrender package. The quantum virus had been carefully woven into every aspect of the data transmission, disguised as natural quantum fluctuations in the communication protocols. To the systems, it would appear as nothing more than the expected noise patterns of primitive technology. "Penetration successful," reported Doctor from the quantum monitoring station. "The virus has entered their primary communication hub, beginning network propagation now." The quantum virus that humanity had created was unlike any conventional computer weapon. Instead of targeting specific systems or software, it operated at the fundamental level of quantum information processing. Any technology that relied on quantum effects, which included virtually all advanced alien technology, was potentially vulnerable. "First replication cycle complete," Wright announced, watching as his screens filled with data streams showing the virus spreading through the alien fleet's networks. "It's moving faster than projected. Their systems are more interconnected than we anticipated." The virus worked by introducing subtle quantum decoherence patterns that gradually degraded the alien technology's ability to process information accurately. Initially, the effects would be barely noticeable: minor calculation errors, slight delays in communication, small fluctuations in power distribution. But as the virus replicated and evolved, these tiny problems would cascade into system-wide failures. Aboard the Dominion's Edge, technical specialist K noticed the first anomaly during a routine system diagnostic. A minor fluctuation in the ship's fusion containment field, lasting only a few microseconds. Well within normal parameters, but unusual enough to warrant investigation. "Power regulation shows optimal performance," he reported to the bridge. "Quantum containment fields are stable, likely just a natural fluctuation in the stellar background radiation. It was exactly the kind of minor issue that would normally be logged and forgotten. The Empire's technology was robust and self-correcting, designed to operate flawlessly for centuries with minimal maintenance. Small fluctuations were common and rarely indicated serious problems. But this fluctuation was different. Hidden within its quantum signature was a pattern that the ship's systems recognized as legitimate data, causing them to attempt processing it. Each attempt created new quantum decoherence patterns, which in turn generated more fluctuations, spreading the virus deeper into the ship's networks. Within hours, similar anomalies began appearing throughout the fleet. Commander Ra of the destroyer Swift Retribution was the first to notice that something was seriously wrong. Her ship's navigation systems had developed a minor but persistent calculation error, causing their orbital position to drift by a few meters every hour. When she ordered course corrections, the errors seemed to increase rather than decrease. "Engineering, explain why our navigation drift is getting worse instead of better," she commanded through the ship's internal communication system. Chief Engineer N's response came with a slight delay that hadn't been there before. "Commander, we're seeing minor quantum flux variations in the navigation processor cores. Running full diagnostics now, but initial scans show no hardware malfunctions." What N couldn't see was that the diagnostics themselves were being affected by the virus. Each scan introduced new quantum decoherence patterns, while the virus learned from the ship's own diagnostic protocols to better disguise itself as normal system functions. On Earth, humanity watched as their weapons spread through the alien fleet like a digital plague. "Virus has achieved full network penetration across 63% of their fleet," reported Dr. Anderson from the monitoring station. "It's moving through their command structure faster than our most optimistic projections." Colonel Santos studied the tactical displays showing the alien fleet's positions and status. "Are they detecting anything?" "Negative," replied Dr. Wright. "The virus is specifically designed to exploit their overconfidence. Their systems aren't looking for quantum-level attacks because they've never encountered a species advanced enough to develop them. They're treating the symptoms as random technical issues." The genius of humanity's approach lay in understanding something about the Empire that the Empire didn't understand about itself. Their technology had become so standardized and interconnected that a single vulnerability could propagate throughout their entire fleet. "Estimated time until critical system failures begin?" Santos asked. 4 to 6 hours for primary systems, 8 to 10 hours for complete fleet-wide breakdown," Wright responded. "The virus is adapting faster than expected. It's learning from each system it encounters and becoming more effective at disguising itself." Admiral was reviewing the human cultural documents when the first serious malfunction occurred. The main display screens throughout the command bridge flickered momentarily, then displayed what appeared to be human artistic imagery before returning to normal operations. "Technical malfunction," reported Communications Officer In, though her voice carried a note of confusion. "Display systems experienced a temporary data processing error. Diagnostics show all systems operating normally." But the diagnostics were lying. The quantum virus had become sophisticated enough to manipulate the very systems designed to detect malfunctions. It presented false data to monitoring systems while continuing to spread through the fleet's networks, growing more complex and destructive with each replication cycle. "Admiral," called out navigation specialist or from his station, "we're receiving inconsistent position reports from other ships in the formation. Some vessels appear to be reporting locations that don't match visual confirmation." His primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary pair examined the navigation reports. Several ships were indeed showing position discrepancies, though the errors seemed random and minor. "Order all ships to verify their positions manually and report any system irregularities," he commanded. "If there's a technical issue affecting multiple vessels, I want it identified and corrected immediately." The order was transmitted throughout the fleet, but the communication system itself was now compromised. The virus intercepted the Admiral's commands and introduced subtle alterations, causing different ships to receive slightly different instructions. The resulting confusion would accelerate the fleet's breakdown while making it appear that individual ship commanders were failing to follow orders properly. captain of the cruiser Galactic Supremacy, received what he believed was an order to move his ship to a new position in the fleet formation. When he attempted to comply, his navigation systems provided coordinates that placed him dangerously close to another vessel. Assuming it was an error, he requested clarification, but the response he received contradicted the original order. Similar confusion was spreading throughout the fleet as the virus manipulated communications, navigation, and command systems simultaneously. What had been a perfectly coordinated armada was beginning to fragment into individual ships operating on contradictory information. Dr. Sarah watched from the underground command center as satellite feeds showed the alien fleet beginning to break formation. Ships that had maintained precise positions for days were now drifting apart, some moving erratically, others remaining stationary while their neighbors relocated. "It's working," she said, barely believing her own words. "They're losing coordination." "Better than that," added General, studying the military tactical displays. "Their formation is collapsing. Ships are moving into positions that compromise their overlapping defensive fields. If they maintain this trajectory, they'll be vulnerable to individual engagement within hours." But humanity wasn't planning to wait for individual engagements. The virus was just the first phase of their strategy. "Dr. Wright, status on the secondary payload?" Santos asked from the orbital command center. "Virus has achieved sufficient penetration for payload deployment," Wright confirmed. "Their systems are compromised enough that they won't be able to prevent the next phase." The secondary payload was humanity's true weapon, a complete system override that would turn the aliens' own technology against them. Once the virus had sufficiently weakened their networks, it would upload new control protocols that would give humanity access to the alien ship's primary systems. "Execute Phase 2, Santos commanded. Across the human fleet, broadcasting stations that had been disguised as surrender beacons activated simultaneously. They transmitted a massive data package directly to every alien vessel, using the same quantum communication protocols that the virus had compromised. Admiral watched in growing horror as his command ship systems began executing commands that no one on his bridge had given. Weapons systems activated without authorization, targeting computers began scanning other ships in the fleet, and navigation systems plotted courses toward collision trajectories. "All stations, emergency shutdown of automated systems," he commanded, but his orders were being filtered through compromised networks. What his crew heard was a series of contradictory commands that only increased the chaos. "Admiral," In called out, her voice tight with panic, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human planet. They're ordering us to stand down and prepare for boarding." The irony was bitter beyond comprehension. The primitive species they had come to conquer was now demanding their surrender, and their own technology was working against them to enforce it. "Impossible," snarled. "A primitive species cannot override technology, find the malfunction and correct it immediately." But there was no malfunction to correct. Humanity had succeeded in turning the Empire's greatest strength, their advanced, interconnected technology, into their greatest weakness. The quantum virus had given humans access to systems that the aliens themselves no longer fully controlled. Throughout the fleet, commanders watched helplessly as their ships began operating according to human directives. Weapons systems powered down despite their orders. Navigation computers plotted courses toward Earth's orbital facilities. Communication arrays began broadcasting surrender messages in perfect. The 47th Conquest Fleet, which had arrived to subjugate a primitive world, now found itself completely at the mercy of the species it had intended to conquer. In less than 12 hours, humanity had achieved something that no other species in galactic history had managed: the complete technological defeat of an Imperial fleet. But Admiral and his commanders had one final option, one that would ensure the primitive humans paid dearly for their impossible victory. The Imperial fleet invaded Earth total erasure. Admiral stood in the failing command center of the Dominion's edge, watching his mighty fleet transform into humanity's unwilling servants. Sparks flew from overloaded control panels, while his crew struggled with systems that no longer obeyed commands. The bridge's main display now showed human text alongside script, both languages demanding the fleet's immediate surrender. But the Admiral had not survived 3 centuries of conquest by accepting defeat easily. His species had contingency plans for every conceivable scenario, including the unthinkable possibility of technological compromise. Emergency Authorization 7 Alpha Dominion, he growled into the ship's communication array. Execute Protocol Omega Final. All ships, all commands, immediate implementation. Protocol Omega Final was the Empire's most extreme measure, the complete destruction of an entire fleet to prevent enemy capture of Imperial technology. It required personal authorization from a fleet commander and would activate quantum destabilization charges in every ship's fusion core simultaneously. The resulting explosion would not only destroy the fleet, but would likely sterilize the entire planet they orbited. If the humans wanted to claim victory over the 47th Conquest Fleet, they would inherit only radioactive dust. Admiral, communications officer called out, her voice strained with effort as she fought against compromised systems. Protocol Omega Final requires confirmation from at least 12 ship commanders. The communication network is too damaged to establish proper authorization links. His mandibles clicked with frustrated rage. The same technological sophistication that made ships so powerful also made them vulnerable to the kind of attack humanity had launched. Emergency protocols that depended on fleet-wide coordination couldn't function when the coordination networks themselves were compromised. But there was another option, one that didn't require fleet coordination. On Earth, Dr. Wright's monitoring systems detected massive energy buildups throughout the alien fleet. Colonel Santos, we have a problem. Multiple vessels are showing fusion core instabilities. I think they're trying to initiate some kind of self-destruct sequence. Colonel Santos studied the energy readings with growing alarm. Can our virus prevent it? Negative, Wright replied, his fingers flying across control interfaces. They're using manual override systems that bypass the networks we've compromised. Physical switches, hardwired emergency protocols. We can't hack hardware that isn't connected to software. From the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center, General addressed the global leadership through secure quantum channels. If they detonate their fusion cores in Earth's orbit, the electromagnetic pulse alone will knock out most of our infrastructure. The radiation will make large sections of the planet uninhabitable for decades. President felt the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down on her. Options. We have one advantage, Doctor interjected from the orbital command station. Their ships are designed to be controlled remotely. We've taken over their navigation systems. We can move their ships. Move them where? Asked. Away from Earth, Santos replied, already calculating trajectories. If we can get enough distance between the fleet and our planet before they destruct, we might survive the blast. But even as humanity's leaders discussed their desperate options, Admiral was implementing his own final solution. All senior officers to emergency stations, he commanded through the ship's internal communication system. Prepare for manual core destabilization. If we cannot complete our conquest, we will ensure no other species learns from these primitives' temporary success. The Empire had standing orders that no Imperial technology could be allowed to fall into enemy hands. The quantum virus might have given humans control over the fleet's computer systems, but it couldn't override the physical training and loyalty of officers. Throughout the fleet, engineering crews moved toward their fusion reactors with grim determination. Chief Engineer N of the Swift Retribution entered his ship's reactor chamber carrying a manually activated destabilization device. The primitive humans might have corrupted his ship's computer networks, but they couldn't prevent him from carrying out his duty to the Empire. For the glory of, he spoke the traditional words as he began the destabilization sequence. But as N worked to override the fusion reactor's safety systems, he didn't notice the subtle changes that humanity's virus had made to his ship's internal environment. Atmospheric processors had been gradually increasing nitrogen levels while decreasing oxygen. Gravity generators had been introducing minor fluctuations that affected inner ear balance. Temperature controls had created thermal gradients that induced fatigue. The cumulative effect was that N, like engineering officers throughout the fleet, was operating at significantly reduced cognitive capacity. When he reached for the manual destabilization control, his compromised coordination caused him to activate the wrong sequence. Instead of initiating core destabilization, he triggered an emergency containment protocol that locked down the reactor completely. Similar scenes played out across the entire fleet. Officers who thought they were destroying their ships were actually activating safety systems that humanity's virus had corrupted to serve defensive rather than destructive purposes. Dr. Wright watched in amazement as his monitoring systems showed fusion reactors throughout the alien fleet shutting down instead of destabilizing. Impossible! How did the virus prevent manual overrides? Doctor, who had been analyzing physiology since first contact, provided the answer. It didn't prevent the overrides. It prevented the aliens from executing them properly. The virus has been subtly altering their ship's life support systems to induce cognitive impairment. They think they're destroying their ships, but they're actually making them safer. Colonel Santos stared at the tactical displays showing alien fusion reactors going offline one by one. How did you know to program that function? We didn't, Wright admitted. The virus learned it. Remember, it's designed to adapt and evolve. It analyzed physiology from their own medical databases and developed countermeasures we never imagined. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, Admiral watched in growing disbelief as ship after ship reported failed destruction attempts. The humans had somehow prevented the Empire's most sacred protocol, the final measure that ensured no alien species could claim technology. Sir, In reported, her voice hollow with defeat, all ships report fusion core lockdown. Manual destabilization has failed fleet-wide. The human virus appears to have anticipated our emergency protocols. For the first time in his 300-year military career, Admiral faced a situation that Imperial doctrine had no answer for. His fleet was captured, his technology compromised, and his final option neutralized. The primitive species he had come to conquer had not only defeated him, but had done so using methods that rendered all Imperial training and preparation useless. But humanity wasn't finished. President addressed the alien fleet directly, her message transmitted through their own compromised communication systems. The translation protocols that had initially enabled first contact now served to deliver humanity's terms with perfect clarity. Admiral and commanders of the 47th Conquest Fleet, you came to our world intending to subjugate or destroy us. You have instead become our prisoners. Your ships, your technology, and your lives now belong to Earth. The message continued, outlining terms that no Imperial officer had ever imagined hearing. However, humanity does not wish to become conquerors. We offer you a choice. Remain as prisoners of war or accept integration into a new kind of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral's response was transmitted throughout the fleet and broadcast to Earth's listening stations. I am Admiral of the Empire's 47th Conquest Fleet. I have served the Empire for 3 centuries and conquered 47 worlds. I do not understand how you have defeated us, but I acknowledge your victory. His next words would be recorded in both human and history. The Empire will send other fleets. When they arrive, they will not underestimate your capabilities as we did. They will bring planet crackers and stellar destroyers. They will turn your star into a weapon if necessary. You have won a battle, but you have also ensured your eventual destruction. President's response was calm but carried an undertone that made translators struggle to find appropriate words. Admiral, you misunderstand our nature. We are not content with defensive victories. Your fleet came here to conquer Earth. Earth now owns your fleet. Your empire will discover that we are not the same species you encountered when you arrived. Over the following hours, humanity began the most rapid technological advancement in galactic history. Every alien ship became a research laboratory. Every captured system became a blueprint for improvement. Every piece of technology was analyzed, understood, and enhanced. The quantum virus that had captured the fleet evolved into something far more sophisticated. A technological integration system that could adapt alien hardware to human control methods while improving performance beyond original specifications. Dr. Wright worked alongside captured engineers, not as prisoners and captors, but as collaborators exploring the boundaries of what was possible when 2 very different technological approaches merged. Your fusion drives are incredibly efficient, he told Chief Engineer N, but you're wasting 30% of your energy output on unnecessary backup systems. Those systems prevent catastrophic failure, N replied, his initial hostility giving way to professional curiosity. They prevent catastrophic failure in a static design, Wright corrected. But if you allow the drive matrix to adapt dynamically, you can achieve the same safety margins with 40% better performance. Similar conversations occurred throughout the captured fleet as human ingenuity encountered engineering knowledge. The result was technology that surpassed what either species had achieved alone. Within days, the first human-controlled alien vessel departed Earth's orbit. The former destroyer Swift Retribution, now renamed New Horizons, had been completely rebuilt using hybrid human technology. Its fusion drives could cross star systems in hours rather than days. Its defensive systems could deflect weapons that would have destroyed the original design. Its quantum communication arrays could coordinate fleet operations across galactic distances instantly. Most importantly, its weapons systems had been upgraded using humanity's understanding of quantum viral warfare. Any ship that encountered New Horizons would face the same technological subversion that had defeated the 47th Conquest Fleet. Admiral, now serving as an advisor to humanity's rapidly expanding space fleet, watched the New Horizons disappear into hyperspace on its mission to the nearest outpost. "You intend to use our own technology to destroy the Empire," he observed. Colonel Santos, now Admiral Santos of Earth's 1st Expeditionary Fleet, shook her head. "We intend to use your technology to offer the Empire the same choice we offered you, cooperation or conquest. The difference is that when we arrive at Worlds, we'll be bringing liberation rather than subjugation." "The Empire has never surrendered," warned. "You will face resistance that makes our fleet seem insignificant." Santos smiled, an expression that translators had learned to associate with human confidence. "Admiral, your Empire conquered worlds by being superior to primitive species. We're going to liberate worlds by being superior to the Empire. Your people taught us that overwhelming technological advantage makes resistance futile. We've simply become the ones with the overwhelming advantage." As news of the 47th Conquest Fleet's fate spread through space, the Empire faced its first existential crisis in. A primitive species had not only defeated their forces, but had somehow acquired and improved Imperial technology beyond recognition. Emergency sessions of the Imperial Council debated responses ranging from negotiation to the deployment of planet-destroying weapons. But as reports arrived from the first encounters with human-controlled vessels, it became clear that traditional Imperial responses were no longer adequate. The quantum virus that had captured one fleet was now spreading through space like a technological plague. Every ship that engaged human forces became part of humanity's growing armada. Every world that resisted found its own defensive systems turned against it. Within 6 months of the 47th Conquest Fleet's arrival at Earth, humanity controlled a significant portion of former space. Conquered worlds were liberated and offered the choice between independence and voluntary alliance with the expanding human federation. Most chose alliance. The technological benefits of cooperation with humanity far exceeded anything the Empire had offered during centuries of rule. Admiral, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the remaining territories, delivered humanity's final message to the Imperial Council on their capital world of Prime. "The Empire came to Earth intending to add another conquered world to your collection. Instead, you have added Earth to the galaxy's dominant powers. Your choice now is simple. Surrender and accept integration into a galactic civilization based on cooperation, or continue resisting and watch your remaining territories join us voluntarily. We offer you the same terms you originally offered Earth: complete surrender within one solar rotation, or face the consequences of continued resistance. The difference is that when we say consequences, we mean liberation rather than annihilation." The Empire's response came exactly one solar rotation later: complete and unconditional surrender. The 47th Conquest Fleet had invaded Earth expecting to add another primitive world to their Empire's holdings. Instead, they had encountered a species that transformed conquest into cooperation, defeat into alliance, and Imperial dominance into galactic liberation. Humanity had not just survived first contact with a superior alien civilization. They had erased that civilization's capacity for conquest and replaced it with something unprecedented in galactic history: a truly cooperative interstellar society. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun.